joining for the first time, do let us know where you are tuning in from. Hi, Jody in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. Fantastic, amazing city. I spent four great years there. Let us know where you're tuning in from, which city would be fantastic. All right, we've got Thailand, wow, Bangkok, Philippines, yes. Amazing, Cambodia, Jakarta. Oh, wow, okay. From Leah, fantastic. Hi. We know you very well there at Leah School there in Jakarta. Brilliant. Hi, Sally from China. Shenzhen. Wow, okay, we've got a real lovely cross section of Asia tuning in today. So again, a very warm welcome from us at Macmillan Education. My name is John. I'm the Regional Professional Development Manager. I will be your host today, and very shortly I'll be introducing you to our main speaker, who is one of our wonderful primary level authors. And you'll have a chance to ask the author as well a little bit later on in this session. So this series is all about helping you guys as teachers develop your attitudes, skills, and knowledge. And all of our sessions will tie in with this theme. And we're very lucky to have such wonderful authors joining us as well from the UK and Europe. So a little bit about us, for those of you that don't know, so we are an educational publisher. We've been publishing for over 175 years now. You may know some of our famous works, such as Alice in Wonderland, which was published now over 150 years ago. And we work with educational institutions, helping them with their educational solutions in terms of course books, as well as digital pedagogy now as well, as we're all shifting, or many of us shifted online throughout the last year or so. So we work in language learning with ELT, and many of you will be English language teachers. We also work more mainstream education as well, through science, maths, through the English medium, as well as literacy products, as well as international higher education and courses like study skills and those kind of academic areas needed at university level. So, as I mentioned, this is number 3 of a 4-series webinar. So we kicked off last week, setting the scene about attitude, skills, knowledge. We had a great session from Joe Ramsden, one of our primary authors, about literacy last week as well. And today we'll have a session about sharing attitudes in the classroom. And tomorrow, our final session, we will move towards teenagers and young adults. So if you haven't registered for tomorrow's event, you can scan that QR code there for session 4 if you're teaching teens or young adults. Don't worry, we will have a certificate for you, and that'll be automatically generated and sent to the email that you signed up for this event. Give us a few days, be a little bit patient, but that will come through to your email. If it hasn't come through in a couple of days, please check your spam folder. Okay. All right, so moving on to today's session, or the content in today's session. We're very lucky to welcome one of our primary authors, Mr. Nick Beare. And Nick's going to be talking about developing a sharing attitude in the classroom, and what skills do we as teachers need? So I think Nick is there hiding behind the scenes somewhere. Come out wherever you are, Mr. Nick. And we will start the session. Here he comes. Hi, Nick. A very, very good morning.
From good afternoon or good evening, I think it is, isn't it? Anyway,
it is. Yes, I think we're around 6 o'clock here in Shanghai, 7 o'clock in Korea, maybe 5 o'clock in Vietnam and Thailand and those countries. So thanks for joining us, Nick. And obviously, I mentioned that you're an author with us with a new primary course called Share It. Correct?
Called Share It.
Okay,
yes.
Fantastic. And you have a very wide experience in ELT. You've worked in many different places around the world. I believe you were in Mexico for some time.
Well, I was in Mexico for 22 years, if you can believe it.
22 years
in
Mexico.
A very long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
then
you
came
were
back to England.
Okay. And you were working. What kind of school were you working with there in Mexico?
Well, various different ones. I started off at a language institute. That was about 15 years. Different language institutes in different places, and then I went to an international school. And I did, well, actually, for most of the time, I was teaching computing, which was slightly strange, and helping doing English classes, ELT classes, because it was an international school. There were lots and lots of students coming in from all over the world, starting at the school. With very different levels of English. Some would be kind of fluent in English. Some actually didn't speak any English at all. So we're trying to get them all up to the same level. It's quite a challenge, but it's good. It's good practice. Very good practice.
Amazing. I would love to visit. Actually, someone's just typed in the chat box that they're from Mexico. So Anna, we have a lady called Anna
hi,
there.
Anna.
So
Viva Mexico. There we are.
Okay, I'm sure she's very happy to hear that. Yeah. Okay, Nick. Well, lovely to have you, and I'll hand over to you now, and I'll be back for a little bit of a Q&A at the end with you if the teachers have any questions. So all the best, and see you a little bit later.
Okay, excellent. Right. Okay. Well, hello everyone. Thanks for turning up and joining us. That's really fantastic. As you can see there, we've got a title at the bottom: Developing a Sharing Attitude in the Classroom. What skills do teachers need? And I'm talking about this because this is something I feel is really, really important in the classroom. We've always talked about kind of collaborating and working together and working in pairs and working in groups. That's been for a long time. But I think more and more and more, the world is about collaborating. We need to collaborate more. And we're going to be looking at some of the skills we can develop, some of the things we need to bear in mind to get this working really, really well. A lot of the examples I'll give will be from primary, but they apply equally well to secondary, actually. We might have come up with one or two examples there and the way we can change it slightly, but the principles are still very much the same. So I think what we'll do is mainly aim at primary, but there's plenty for secondary too. Also, most of the activities I've done, we're covering here, were originally designed for working actually in the classroom. Now, I don't know how many, but I imagine quite a few of you are still not actually working in classrooms. You're working online. And some of the activities we can adapt really nicely. They would go quite easily into working online. Other ones is going to be a little bit different. We'll have to change them a bit, or perhaps leave them for when we're actually back in the classroom, because we will all be back in the classroom at some point, I hope. Right. So let's get started. Oh, how do I move on? I can't move on. I want to move on to the next. Oh, there we are. Right, okay. So there we got our first one. Why does the world need to collaborate more? This is my question for all of us. I'll give you the answer for that one, because quite simply, we're not moving on, which is a bit of a... There we are. Okay. The answer, quite simply, is because we're in a right old mess, basically. There's a nice little English phrase for you if you want to emphasize something in a kind of friendly way. It's not just we're in a mess, we're in a right old mess. And I think, unfortunately, this is true at the moment, that when I say a right old mess, there are quite a lot of problems in the world at the moment. We don't really need to list them, but kind of the top ones really are things like pandemics, obviously, and global warming. That's another good one. And kind of a lot of problems between different countries and so on and so forth. Perhaps some governments which we're quite so favourable with, or whatever. I'm not going to go into talk about politics, but there are really quite a lot of problems in the story in the world. Also, the problem, because it is sometimes a problem, the problem of the internet and how we handle and deal with the internet, which is kind of a fantastic tool, but also at times not so good. So these are all things we need to do, we need to deal with, as I say, because we are in a bit of a right old mess. Probably not the worst problems they've ever been, but they are quite serious, I think, a lot of them. Right. And I'll jump forward. I don't really mean to do that anyway. Because another reason why we need to work together, because working together is the best way to get things done. More and more in the workplace and so on, we really have to be collaborating all the time. I think perhaps the time of the kind of single person, the single genius who takes the world and changes everything, that's kind of moving away. We all really have to work together in teams, but more or less whatever we're doing, actually. Right, so that's another reason why we need to collaborate, share, or work together. I'm using those three phrases kind of all together because they're all the same idea of just somehow working together in different ways in the classroom and elsewhere. Right, so because working together is the best way to get things done, and it's a bit slow moving on. There, because we can all help each other. And that's really the main thing about working together. It's a great way of helping of really getting to the core of helping each other all the time. That's a benefit for the people we're working with and a benefit for ourselves as well, because other people help us. So we can't really have any more of this fantastic people who are just going to rule the world and show everybody what to do. No, we've all got to work together on it. And we can start that in the classroom, basically, because working together is the best way to learn a new language. Right, so let's have a look. Where are we? Right, so let's have a look at that first question. Why do students need to work together more? Right, I'm going to give you you can put up some ideas, but I think what we'll do is I've got a little quiz here and you can fill in the answers. Why? Because working together, sharing, collaborating, it's a vital skill for well done, somebody's got it already. Look at that. Goodness, you're quick. Well done. Is it? Oh, I can't read the name. Anyway, Ricardo or something. That's really Chow. Something. Apologies if I mispronounce the names. Right. Yes, correct. It's a vital skill for their future. Nicely done. How about this? That's the students. They'll learn that helping each other is any ideas for that one? No ideas for that one. Essential. Well, yes, that's true. It's not the one I had in mind. Energetic. I like that one. Yes. Well, can need a lot of it. Energizing. These are actually better than the ones I had put in. I like particularly energizing and energetic. Essential too. I was actually thinking of something else, but it's a very encouraging, effective. These are all very good. Excellent. We'll see what the original answer was in a minute. All right. They'll learn that, this is a tricky one. It's a word you might not be thinking of. They'll learn that can help them. What would the O there stand for? Any ideas? Anybody want to come up with any ideas? That's a tricky one. Others. Goodness, you're a sharp, you're a quick lot, eh? Goodness. Yeah, the opportunity as well. That would be good. But yes, the original answer was others. They'll learn that others can help them. I think particularly well, sometimes in primary, yes, more actually. In secondary, some students are very loath to kind of accept the help of others because they just want to do it themselves. But I think bit by bit, students are having to learn that really they need to be helping others and have others help them. It really makes a difference to the way you learn the language. Right, and this one's a bit tricky as well. What could S stand for? F, the leaders, followers, and everyone else needs to share, help others, and receive help. Everyone, goodness, you got this straight away. You're certainly quicker than I was at doing this. And some nice other words there. That would be a different kind of sentence, empathy, but actually that is what we need a lot of. I really like these answers. Some of these are kind of actually a little bit better than the ones I originally had. Let's just look at those questions together, those answers together. So working together, sharing, collaborating, whatever, it's a vital skill for their future. That really, whatever work they're doing, I really can't think of any job that actually now you just simply do on your own and nobody else interferes with you. Every single job you do in in your life, you will actually be collaborating. It's a vital skill. Right. They learn that helping each other is enjoyable. We'll talk about some of the problems that students have when they're kind of reluctant to share and work together because they think it's boring or silly or whatever. I think with a little bit of work and some good activities, they'll actually decide that really it is quite enjoyable in different ways. They'll learn that others can help them. Well done, the people who got that. Yes, there are any others. They could be for any walk of life, anywhere. So everybody can somehow help you in some way. Right, and then everyone. That's leaders, followers, and everyone else. Yes, that's leaders, the followers, the people who like them, and the people who don't like them, and the people who don't know, and all of those people. Everybody needs to share in some way or another. Needs to share and to get help from others. So you're giving and receiving help. And it's kind of a key to working and perhaps beginning to sort out some of our problems. And one of the most important places to do it, I feel, is actually in the language classroom, because that's how we learn languages, basically. By collaborating with our parents, with our children around us, we pick up the language. Right. Okay, let's go on to the next little bit. So that's one of our first skills when we're talking about, I put the teacher's skills there at the front, teacher's skills number 1. So we're talking about the teachers who are really happy with with encouraging working together and sharing and so on, collaborating. These teachers, they understand the huge importance of working together. It's not just a nice idea or a bit of fun. It's really hugely important to get into the habit of working together, knowing how to do it, enjoy working together, enjoy helping other people and being helped by other people. Sometimes the second one, being helped, is the most difficult one for people. But as teachers, this is the one of the things we need to do. We need to understand the huge importance of working together. That's our first little skill. I think there are 6 little skills we'll get through all in the course of our talk today. That's the first one. Right, moving on. Okay, so what we'll be looking at today. Let me just move something because I've got it covering up there. Right, so what we'll be looking at today is activities for sharing, just some examples, kind of things you're familiar with, and we'll talk about why they're so helpful in the area of getting people to share and so on. The skills that the teacher needs for these activities, we've already had one. That was the first one we already had. There are 5 more to come. How the teacher can encourage students to share together and work together, because it's nice saying, this is a great activity or whatever, but if the students are not really happy about sharing, then that can be a bit of a problem. So we need to work on that together to encourage them. And then sharing, working together, and that old favorite, classroom management. I always somehow, every talk, every webinar, whatever I do, I always get in something about classroom management, because it's a funny thing. When I first became an ELT teacher, and that's really quite a long time ago, really a long time ago. Classroom management was just about, I don't know, arranging the desks or something, or putting nice pictures up or something. It was very, very simple. And I think gradually people have realized that classroom management, the way we control the class, because whatever the case, as the teacher, we're the boss and we decide what happens in the class. Well, it certainly does in mine. I think that's the idea. The teacher is the boss, a very nice boss in a very nice way, but you are the boss. You are really in charge of everything. And so really you've got to get the whole the whole system working well. That's what classroom management is about. And it's really, really a very, very important thing. And it makes a huge difference to the way your students work, how much they learn, how much they enjoy the class as well. Because students really, they may say this is not the case, but really they want an ordered, structured classroom. They don't like mess or confusion or whatever. Right, so a little bit more of classroom management as well, related particularly to sharing and so on. Right, so let's have a look at this question. Another little question for you. Why are some students not happy with working together? What sort of things do they say? Perhaps you can give me some examples. You can put them in the little feed here. Anybody got any examples of what students say when they don't want to work with another team? Why is it they don't want to work? Any ideas coming up? Let's see. Oh, somebody said nice tie. Thank you very much. I like that one. That's good. Thank you very much. People who don't trust others. They have issues. Yes, very often people who are trying to look tough and so on, actually, they're the ones who've got sometimes quite upsetting, quite unhappy problems of different types. Introverted, reserved, yes. They don't like their group mates, yes. Or I think more of a problem actually is they like their own tiny little group, their own little tribe. The rest of the class, oh no, they're not it. They're shy about it. They're not paying attention to the class. Yes, they don't like to work with other people. Absolutely. Right. These are all very common things. This is the same pretty much the world over. All right. They want to work with their best friend. Yes, thank you. That's another one. It takes time to discuss. That's an interesting point, because I think that's something teachers worry about, that they feel that if they've kind of got the students moving around, it's going to take more time. I think if we handle things properly and move quickly, and as I'm always saying, don't spend too much time giving instructions, just get the students to do an example, two students to do an example of what you want done. That's much the quickest way. Right, not used to working with others. That can be very true, yes, particularly if they're kind of single children or whatever, they don't have brothers and sisters. The idea of actually working with others is sometimes rather difficult. Right, they always think they're cleverer than the other. Well, you certainly get students like that. But if they're so clever, then what they can be doing is helping each other. Sometimes they're not always quite so clever as they might think, but that's what will be nice about it. Right, let's see what are some things I've got. I mean, pretty much they cover what you've got here. Right, typical things students say, why they don't want to work together. I want to be the best. I think this is a problem that's particularly become quite important, quite a big problem recently, because there's so much emphasis on do the best, be the best. You can be number one, which is okay. It's nice to be motivated and so on, and everybody can indeed do their best. But the idea of sort of being the best and better than everyone else, I'm not entirely sure how helpful that is. You can be best in your own way, but not so much better than everybody at everything. As somebody has just put up, they don't understand the idea of teamwork. To them, to a lot of students like this who want to be the best, the only thing about doing an activity, any activity, is to be the best at it, to be number one. Which, I mean, obviously you want to get it right and whatever, do the right thing, but you can actually be helping other people, and other people can actually be giving you another point of view, actually. Right, so here we are, and that's one very common one. I want to be the best. My classmates will laugh at me. Here we've got, a lot of you mentioned the whole thing about people being very nervous, particularly if they felt that they're not as bright as some of the others, or not as good at English, in this case, as others. They can be very, very self-conscious and not want to do anything. Again, with a bit of work together, we can kind of make them feel a bit more comfortable. This is the one down at the bottom. I want to work with my best friend and nobody else. So it's just me and my best friend because we're the best people, etc. It's very nice if you have a nice friend you want to work with, but there are other people in the classroom, other people who can help you, the people who need your help. It's not really ideal just to do the same thing all the time. And quite often, when it's always working with your best friend, a lot of the time you're kind of sharing time, making little jokes and kind of talking in your own little group, and it's not really relevant to what the activity is. Particularly, you'll probably be speaking in your native language. That's not really helping learning English. And another one, I think other people have mentioned this, my classmates see my mistakes. Yes, a lot of people are very, very conscious about making mistakes. And there, I think it's something we have to really get inside the student's mindset, is that there's nothing wrong with making mistakes. Let me see, I think I mentioned before, I lived in Mexico for 22 years. And obviously, during that time, I learned Mexican Spanish, which is a special version of Spanish, but it's the type of Spanish they speak in Mexico. And obviously, to begin with, I didn't speak a word, not a word of Spanish. I had no idea what to do, and people helped me, and I made lots and lots and lots of mistakes. And sometimes they were very funny mistakes. Sometimes they were very embarrassing mistakes. You say really things you didn't mean to say. I thought, it's all just a bit of a laugh. You just take it into account. That's the way you learn a language. If you're a little baby, goodness, you make lots of mistakes. Parents love your little mistakes when you make funny little words up and so on. And get rather upset when you learn the real word. It's the same with learning a language when you're a bit older. You'll be making lots of mistakes. It's not a problem. I think we have, that's another subject I'm always talking about, a little bit too much emphasis on accuracy. In many classes and subjects in the class, in the school rather, that's fine. In maths, yeah, accuracy, accuracy, accuracy. But when you're learning a language, well, you just have to accept some mistakes. And I think you can encourage the students to feel, oh, okay, there's a mistake, maybe we'll correct it, maybe not. Let's just leave it and just carry on doing the activity. But I think as several people have pointed out, a lot of people really come up with things as a kind of defense because they're a little bit nervous about everything. So the more we make the students feel at home doing fun activities where if they make a mistake, it's not the end of the world, where we're kind of encouraging and they're helping each other, that's the way to encourage the activities. Right, moving on. So let's have a look at one or two actual activities that are great for sharing. Right, the first one, we all know this is good, is communicative activities. Right, we'll talk about those in a minute. And then we'll talk about reading short scripts together, which is something which a lot of teachers seem to think was not a good thing to do. There was a whole time when reading aloud, oh no, we don't do that, that's old-fashioned. Of course, actually now it's all come round circle. It's not old-fashioned, it's new, it's exciting. And just the idea of what we can do with short scripts really, really helps. And of course, open-ended chat. Well, about a particular topic, not just chatting away in class, particular topics and so on. Those are the three ones which seem, the three activities that seem to work the best. Let's look at each one in order. So we're looking at communicative activities. Well, the great thing is they're all about sharing because you're sharing information, which you're doing in class, and you will probably spend the rest of your life sharing information with the people at work, with your children, with your family, with everything. It's all about, well, a lot of it is about sharing. And the great thing is that communicative activities usually mirror the way we use English in everyday conversation. We ask questions for people and we get the answers back. So we find out what's going on. However, I think a lot of people do have sometimes a bit nervous about communicative activities. They feel it's difficult to set them up. Particularly, that is the problem I've noticed. So I'll put it here. The problem with communicative activities is they've been very careful setting up. It's not a question of giving long, complex instructions, as I'm always saying, always. It's really keeping absolute minimum of instructions, just getting two students to do an example. So if we take an example here, I've taken this from Share It, the new book we were talking about. This is kind of applicable to all of them. Let's just quickly go through this. What we have to do when setting up. First of all, keep what you say to a minimum. Okay, as I was saying, don't talk too much. The more you talk, the more the students wander away. They'll be thinking about other things. They'll be sitting in their desk and their mind is 100 miles away. Two is to help students to do the two students to do the activity while the class watches. An example, a demonstration of an activity works more than any number of words. And always circulate around the class so that you can hear them making mistakes and help them gently. Okay, make sure they're doing the activity and kind of stand at the back as much as you can, because they can't see you, and that way they have to keep on working. Right, so let's take an example of excuse me, communicative activity. This is I think level 1 of Share It. In Share It, you get this fantastic little book, which is full of, every student gets it, of lots and lots of communicative activities. So they always have their communicative activity book. Each student has the card that they need to work with. So it's all there. It's all much easier to set up. So something like this, it's Guess the Robot. It's for parts of the body. And robots have a body too, don't they? So you can see some robots have 4 legs, or they have 6 legs, or 2 legs, or no legs, or they've got 2 eyes, or 1 eye, or no eyes. All of these things in different numbers: fingers, hands, heads as well. We've got one robot with 3 heads. So that's a big advance. Right, all sorts of things. So basically, one student just chooses one, thinks of it, and the other one asks questions, okay, to see if he or she can guess which robot it is. So you've got a little example question there, which you can get the students to do up at the front of the class. They can work on it together. Okay, so student A, you're thinking about the student, you're saying, okay, it has, I don't know, it has 2 arms. Student B can try and guess. 2 arms. Oh, is it robot 2? No, it isn't. Okay. You can ask another question. You can say another thing. So it hasn't got a head, for example. That's a big one. So it's got 2 arms, but it hasn't got a head. Is it robot 5? Yes, it is. Okay. So very simple activity. This is level 1, very, very simple, but really nice, really fun for the students to work with, very easy to set up. And basically what you're doing is sharing information, giving a piece of information and asking for information. It's a perfect kind of sharing activity. It's an example of working together and so on. And the main thing is it's very easy to set up. So if you're doing communicative activities, keep what you say at a minimum, and kind of try to use activities that are very easy to set up, not complex ones with lots of odd information and so on, just simple ones. Obviously at level 4, 5, 6, they can be more complex than this, but we want to still try and keep them straightforward so the students know what they're doing, know what they're trying to find out. Right, let's just take another example again, from Share It. This is actually, I think, from a higher level. I can't remember offhand which one. Okay, here is an example where the 2 students have in their book, they either take student A's card or student B's card. They've got different information and they have to fill them in. So again, They're asking for information. It's very easy to set up. You've got an example dialogue there at the bottom. It all makes it easy to set up, and the students are kind of asking for real world information and actually learning how to share information with each other. So it becomes like a natural activity. It's not just trying to do what the teacher says. It's just simply finding the information, which is something they do in their own language, and they will be doing in English for all of their lives, basically, trying to get a bit of information. So that's really, really important, using communicative activities, but setting them up. Okay, so that's number 2, teacher skills number 2. What do these wonderful teachers who do really, really successful classes with lots of sharing, they can set up communicative activities quickly and clearly. It's so important to do that, as I say, quickly and clearly. This is really kind of classroom management, the way you do it. Talking to a minimum from the teacher, give an example, get 2 teachers to do it, 2 students rather, to do an example, and go around the class as they do it. That's the way to set them up. Okay, moving on. Right, reading short scripts together. So the activity which was for a long time not so, well, they thought, no, that's not right, that's not modern. Now, of course, we decide it's very modern. Particularly with the right type of short little script. Obviously, if you're talking about level 1, primary 1, there's just a few little exchanges, 2 or 3 exchanges. If you're talking about level 6, it can be a little bit longer, but they're still short, okay? And helps the students to use the language in a natural way. I think this is important, that they're reading, but they can put in intonation and stress, okay? So they don't just say, I am very sad. They're saying, oh, I'm very sad. They're doing a little bit of acting, a little bit of kind of talking. Now, it is only acting, but it's learning how the language works in a natural way. And helps to give the students confidence, not immediately. Some students might find this a little bit difficult. They don't like having people look at them. It can be a bit difficult for them. But with practice and so on, then that works well. So, for example, if we are doing a little sorry, I should say this. There's always a problem to all of these things, but the students should change partners often. We really want to avoid having them working with the best friend all the time, because they'll just be chatting away or doing more or less the same thing every time. Move them around. This is the whole point, so they get to know other students. Right. And hello. For example, we could do this a very short little dialogue. Say, for example, these 2 people up at the top. That's what are they? Nancy is the girl, and Alex, the boy, the one sitting at the table right at the top of the page. This is again from Share It. I think this is level 2, I think. Right, and we could make up any little dialogue. For example, Nancy, I think, has got watermelon, and from the look of it, Alex has got orange. I think, is that an orange? Yes. And the Share Pal, the one, this is the feature of Share It, this little Share Pal guy here, he's got, from the look of it, a bit of pizza. So perhaps we're having just a conversation between Nancy and Alex, and you can write it on the board. You say, oh, Alex, do you like orange? Yes, and Alex says, yes, I do. And then Alex adds, do you like watermelon? Yes, I do. Okay, and then perhaps Alex can say, I like watermelon too, but really I like pizza, because you're looking at the pizza there. Something like that. You can write it on the board, okay? And there's enough there for students at, I think we're talking about level 1, primary 1, primary 2, just to be able to get through that and use it in a fun way, yeah? And there's even in a simple thing like that, there are little sentences they'll enjoy saying, yeah? Say, like when Alex says, yes, but I think what we say, I really like pizza. Yeah, that's the thing I imagine most children do, most people. So that would be a really nice little thing for them to use, kind of the correct intonation. It's more fun to do. So these are very simple little scripts. Right. And fine. Oh, here's a longer conversation. I think this is level 6 of Share It, actually. Now, obviously, you're not going to put all of this on the board, on the whiteboard, for them to read out. That's too much. Make a shorter little version, okay, which you can actually write then yourself. Okay, this is a conversation between Seb, who's the boy, and what's the girl called? Taylor, that's it, and their mum, and what present they bought them, and so on. You can give a short little version of this, or add some other detail, and they can act it out in pairs. Right, and finally, for the really nice kind of sharing it activities, open-ended chat. It's a little bit difficult to set up this, but it's the real everyday use of language. It's a great way to reuse favorite pages from the students' books. That's something I think it's a pity, like we use a page just for one lesson and then that's it, we've gone past it. And sometimes you've got really nice stuff on, that you've seen in earlier pages, but actually the students kind of forget it, only used it once. So to do these open-ended chats, which perhaps with older pictures, we can have the students need cues as a problem. We can't just say talk about this. So for example, here's a great page from Share It. I think actually this is level 1, okay, about koalas. Well, any page about koalas. Too cute for words, and they are. And there's some great, really cute little pictures there. The little baby one's asleep there. That's so cute. Anyway, we can't just say after they've done this, okay, you two talk about koalas. No. We need to give them a bit of guidance, but not too much. We need to give them very, very simple cues. So if we're here, right, choose the cues carefully. Can they, here are some questions we could be asking. Can they questions? Can they climb? Can they fly? You can put that up on the board. Do they eat, I don't know, do they eat pizza? No, they don't. Do they sleep in a bed? No, they don't. Do they sleep in a tree or whatever? Yes. What do they eat? If you remember the text, actually, when they've seen it there, they just eat leaves. Where do they live? In Australia or in trees or whatever. But we're not going to put up the whole conversation. We're just going to put up these little cues for them. And as they get more and more advanced, the cues can become simpler and simpler, okay, just very simple little ones. But also at this level too, perhaps we give a little bit more details, ideas for verbs for them to use and so on. And that makes it very easy for them to have a conversation. And before you know it, they're having a conversation in pairs. So you've got the whole class having a nice little chat in pairs about koalas or whatever else they happen to be doing. Right. Very quickly, let's go through those. I'm going to go backwards and think, if you're still in doing your classes online, how can you do these activities? They're not going to have the same impact online as they do actually when you're working in the class, but you can adapt them all. So for example, I've gone back to the communicative activities. You can just choose one student A and student B, and they can do it with each other. They can't actually see each other, but they can be asking the questions to each other and giving the answers, and the rest of the class can see and hear them. So that it could actually work perfectly well. It would be a little bit slower. The students wouldn't get so much practice. It wouldn't have quite the movement it does, but it's still a useful activity and it gets them working together. Right, exactly the same with this one. You can just choose students to give the questions and the answers. Right, the same with this. You can choose two students to do their conversation, and they'll be in completely different places, of course, but they're there on the screen in their own little place or whatever. So you can say, right, you, and the two of them give it, and then choose another two and another two. Don't go on for too long, but it's a chance to do a bit of practice, a bit of working together. And exactly the same with this. Although this is a bit more difficult, the open-ended chant, because you do need to give them some cues as well. So it might be a little bit more difficult to set that up with just you and you have a chat about this, because you've got to give the cues and so on. That one might be a little bit difficult when you're working online. But the other ones, they should work okay. As I say, not the same impact, rather slower, but it still works. Right, So another teacher skills, there's number 3 coming up. We're halfway through the teacher skills, which is good because we're more than halfway. Oh, yeah, keep moving. Use students, so these great teachers use cues to help the students, but not too much. Remember, when we give cues, it's just like, this is the most you'll be giving. Yeah, really keep it cut down to a minimum so the students know what sort of things they can say. They can refer to it on the board, but we really don't want them to have just the complete question. They're going to make the questions themselves and the answers as well. Right, so these wonderful teachers use cues to help the students, but not too much. Moving on. Right, this is a very important one, just a quick one. I've talked about it in other talks, so you might have seen me going about that. It's my theme for the year. What do you want your students to be? Well, let's have some quick ideas of what we can have. What do you want your students to be? Anybody want to come up for any ideas there for what they want their students to be? Happy, yes, absolutely. Of course, we want them to be happy in class. Thinkers, that's a good one. Yes, okay, you can encourage them to do that. Any other ideas of what you want? Problem solvers, good, yeah. Fluent in speaking, well, yes. Curious in a good way. Independent, creative, okay. Right, that's great ideas there, good communicators. This is more about the results. I'm thinking more about their personality. How do you want them to behave in the class? Do you want them to be noisy or quiet or happy or whatever? Self-confidence, that's a good one. Let's see what I put here. It's just my ideas, but it doesn't have to be desperate. This is what I put down for what I want my students to be: enthusiastic, polite, friendly, positive, and helpful. I think those ways of behaving are kind of the most important ones. Whether they are very clever and whether they can be very do brilliant writing or speak well and so on, that'll depend on their abilities and so on. But we can't force them to be like that, but we can try and encourage them to be all of these things: enthusiastic, polite, friendly, positive, helpful. Now, that if people are like that, then naturally they're beginning to share things and working together and so on. These are the basics of it. How can we encourage the students to be like that? We can't just say, hey, now come on, class, be enthusiastic. It's not going to work, is it? Be friendly. Of course, that's not going to work. Particularly not with adolescents, with teenagers. Tell them to all to be friendly. Nah, that's not going to work. We want to encourage them to be like that. But I think just telling them, that's not going to work. And I think one of the main reasons it doesn't work is that we're not modeling it for them. We're behaving rather differently. Yes, these were the students we want to be friendly and helpful and positive. And sometimes, it's happened to me, it happens to all of us, we can be a bit short-tempered in class. I'm exhausted. I've done 6 classes. This is the 7th class. It's hot. It's different. It's too much. You're not, as a teacher, well, I know at times I wasn't enthusiastic and polite and friendly and positive and helpful. I think this is one of the real keys to getting students work together and so on, to adapt these kind of characteristics we want. You must be all those things. Now, I didn't realize that when I was a full-time teacher. I thought the teacher did one thing and the students do another. But now, as I do just little bits and pieces of teaching all over the place, I realize more and more the way actually to get students to be all these wonderful things, which is enthusiastic, polite, friendly, positive, and helpful. The way to do it is to be those things myself, to be enthusiastic and helpful and polite. Okay, I'm not going, oh, I'm so tired, please now be quiet. No, nothing like that. Even if you are, that happens to all of us. Yeah, we've got to be all of those things. That's the way we get students to work together with these wonderful characteristics of enthusiastic, polite, friendly, positive, and helpful. I think, oh gosh, somebody's put in such a good point there, Jodie Patterson. This is such an important point. Teachers should always be learning themselves so they understand what it's like for the student. I always feel that teachers should actually be learning another language themselves, language teachers, learning another language, because you forget how difficult it is to learn a language. You kind of remember what you did in school when you were learning English, and you think, oh, I was really good. Yes, I had no problems at all. Yes, blah, blah. And actually, it probably wasn't like that. Our memories just do tend to get a little bit confused sometimes. That's a slightly different point, but yes, thanks, Jody. That was a really great point, that really useful one. Right, anyway, so here's another of our little virtues or skills for our teachers. Okay, teacher skills number 4. These teachers try to be what they want their students to be. They try to be, as much as possible, enthusiastic and kind and polite on all of those things to the students. So the whole classroom is like that, and that becomes a cooperative kind of classroom. Right, moving on, because I'm a bit late, I'm a bit behind. Right, got 2 more to do. How can we encourage the students to work together? Right, have I got some ideas for how am I going to get you to work together? Right, okay, whoops, go back, sorry. How can we encourage students to work together? Be the role model. Yes, well, that will work for all things, actually. Thank you very much. Anybody want to make some more suggestions for that, about how can we encourage students to work together? Anyone's, apart from incentives, right? Okay, well, what are we going to do? Give them like little presents or something, little prizes? Well, we can give them points for it, and this is a very important thing, points. Yes, asking them to participate. Well, yes, we tell them to participate. Praising efforts, those all work. Yeah, more points. Yes, points I think are the key one. That's the one I'm going to come to, actually. Very good. Right, points for helping each other. Now, we've got to be careful how we do this. So I'm going to look at 3 things very quickly. Points for helping each other, displays of the top helpers, the best helpers, and know your classmates quizzes. That's really like this last one. It takes a bit of setting up, but it's really, really good. All right, so let's go on to the first one, points. So you can award helping points for each pair, each group, when they're working together, which groups have really helped to help each other. Right, but I think it's important, really important, that if we're going to do that, we don't tell the students that's what we're doing. So don't tell the students you're going to give helping points, right? You just, perhaps even halfway through an activity, think, this would be a good one for helping points. Don't say anything to them, but just go around and think, they're really good, and then get 5 points, and not so good, so perhaps 1 point or whatever. Don't say anything to them until after the activity. After the activity, say, oh, by the way, that was a helping point activity. And they will say, oh, teacher, we didn't know. Exactly. I want to see them helping naturally, not suddenly saying, oh, I must be healthy. Helping, not healthy. I must be helping points, helping people, getting helping points. So you do all the collecting of the points, and then at the end of the activity, you say, that activity was for helping points. And you can tell them how many points they got. Always with this thing, I think it's good to concentrate on just the good people. So A and B, you did really well, and you got 3 points, well done, perhaps an example. And B and C, you did really well as well, and so on. I think it's quite nice, actually, to do something like this, a little display, which just focuses on the pairs who are doing the best, with just the good ones. Don't add the weak ones. We don't want to say, oh, you're not good. I mean, they can pick it up that they're not on the display, so they're not doing so good, but we don't want to be discouraging them. And don't put the exact points on the display. You can tell them individually, not the whole class. I don't think that's the right idea at all. It's not really a competition. It's just a reward for doing something well and helping. Hello, come on. Oh, hang on, we got lost. On this one, please. I don't know if you're getting an image there. Oh, there we are at last. So this could be your little display, okay? Something simple like that just gives the names of, in this case, the pairs who were doing really well. Luke and Matt, Sophia and Eric, and Tanya and Emma, whatever the names are, okay? Just those ones. We don't know exactly what points they got. We don't know what the other ones are. The point is just to get your name up there. You and your partner always both get the same amount of points, even if one's helping more. Because one's helping and the other one's receiving. Right, so it's a simple activity, simple thing, but it works rather well. Now, know your classmates quiz is a little bit more complicated, but it's good fun. So basically, at some point, you just give your students little surveys to complete about themselves, okay, with simple questions. and you use the information for later on, perhaps a week later. So for example, you're using questions like this: how many brothers do you have? How many sisters do you have? What pets do you have? Simple questions that can use the grammar perhaps they're practicing at the moment, or the vocabulary they're practicing at the moment, and include some simple ones. You know, what's your favorite color, your favorite music? Everybody likes saying that. And each time only use perhaps 3, maybe 4 questions. We could keep it simple and quick. So you just get the students perhaps to write out the answers with their name. You collect it in, and then that's it. Nothing at all. And everybody says, well, what was that about? And then you don't say when the quiz will be. Perhaps, perhaps you could say, we're going to have a quiz about that. You don't let them see each other's answers before they give them to you. Right, but then later on there is a quiz, and you ask those questions again. So for example, we could say questions like this. If you ask the questions, what's your favorite color? Do you have a pet? And how many sisters do you have? Everyone will have an answer. You can just ask the question about 3 people. So what's Laura's favorite color? What pet does David have? How many sisters does Sarah have? Just 3 simple questions. Maybe they'll know, maybe they won't. The incentive for them beforehand is to try and find out the answers for everyone so that they'll be able to give a correct answer for all of them. To begin with, they'll be a little bit like, oh gosh, I didn't know that. Do that 2 or 3 more times, and then after they've had the first little survey thing, they'll go around asking each other questions, yes, and passing it on and passing on the information and say, oh, I heard that, I don't know, that so-and-so has a pet snake or something. Oh, great, I know that. So they'll be collecting all this information, finding out about each other, talking to each other, talking in groups that don't normally mix. You're kind of forcing them to mix together, often outside the classroom. And that works really well because they pick up information. They kind of learn to be working with each other. And then when it's time for the quiz, you ask information, just I say 3 questions about 3 specific people. You're not going to ask the favorite colors of all the people in the class. Just choose one person, 1 question. Right. Difficult to do if you're working online, unfortunately. But if you are, I'll put up the instructions here. They could ask each other the questions in class so everybody hears the answers. It's a different way of doing the activity. Give the test a week later, the same questions about 3 particular people, so that it's more about memory than sharing, because they didn't go around and try to find the answers, but it's as a memory activity, and finding out about other people still useful. So you can still carry on with that in the class. It does work really well, and it's great that the students find out about each other. It's particularly good, I think, for teenagers, because teenagers tend to particularly have their own little groups, their own little tribe, and they don't really mix with the others. With this activity, they'll have to start mixing with each other and finding out about each other. That really encourages them to work together, and it's kind of fun. You get some interesting examples, interesting answers. So skills number 5, we're zooming through because we are a bit late. These teachers set up activities to encourage sharing. There are just some examples there. Often it's a question of how you set these up and how you can do them. And they are a great way of encouraging people to share and communicate more with each other, particularly with the students they don't normally communicate with. And if it's for an activity, for a fun thing like the quiz, then it's kind of much more motivating for them to do. Right. How can we keep students on their toes? That's another thing we have to do. We're going to have to zoom through this, keep them on the toes, thinking all the time, of course. And what we have to do, I feel, I'd like to ask other people how they do it. But I haven't really got time because we've got to be finishing. If you've got any questions, I'll zoom through. These are 3 ones I found really useful. When you're different ways of getting them in pairs and groups, different ways of adding a bit of surprise every time and making it fun. Let's see what we've got for those. Unusual ways of not just you and you or just the numbers thing, because they've done it so many times, okay? Could perhaps give them matching cards. So if you've got pairs of cards with different pictures on, you can give them at the beginning of the class, kind of at random then, and then halfway through the class, they'll be really wanting to know who's got the other one. And it might be somebody they never normally talk to. It might be the best friend. You never know. It's going to be different people each time. That's a great way. They've got to go and find the person they're doing the pair activity, or it could be a group activity with more cards. Either way, that works really well. And it's a kind of different way. Another way, you can suddenly do birthdays, and that way they find out, birthdays going through the year. The first 2 in the year are in one group, the second 2 in the year are in another group, etc., etc. Alphabetical order for names as well. If you use a different one each time, it's kind of like, that's kind of much more fun. Okay. Another one which is great, I picked this up from the internet actually, I'd never thought of this, but putting post-its under the desk, either with the name of the partner or perhaps just a colour or something like that. So you've actually put that under before the class, and they say, okay, now we're going to do the activity, an activity in pairs and whatever. Have a look under the desk, okay? And they go, what do you mean? Oh, and they find a little message either with the name or with the it's a color, and they've got to find the person with the other color. Those are kind of really motivating. So simply the idea of getting into pairs or groups, that's fun by itself. They're really ready for the activity after that. Right, another thing, very quickly, we're coming almost to the end now. Adding us a bit of surprise. I think classes always, not every class, if it's a surprise every class, it's not a surprise, but every now and then something completely surprising. So I put here, add a surprise from time to time. Those are some of the little surprises I did. Forget the book, that's a book from quite a long time ago. All these inflatable things, I still have them. Yep, here we are. We got that very same guitar as we had there. I think this one is actually, whoops, that's another saxophone, not the one I've got there. Or even something as simple as this. Hang on, this has run out of air. Need to keep good lungs. Okay, yes, excellent. A microphone, really useful too when they're doing little pair work, talking to each other. They can be interviewing each other with the microphone, or just simply a bit of rolled up paper. It doesn't have to be anything like this. You can't provide all of these for the classroom. Normally I use these just for examples. So get 2 to the front, give one of these to hold so that they're not having it, don't find it so embarrassing, going, oh, everybody looking at me. What normally happens is actually, one student will talk into the microphone, then the other one will take the microphone and talk into it. And this works even if you say, well, we haven't got a microphone, but here, use a pencil, take the pencil to talk. Really funny little thing, but people feel much better if they've got something to hold in their hands. Right, so a little bits of surprise, something completely unexpected. Inflatable things, always good for anything, any level at primary. You can try it for a bit of fun at secondary. It depends on the groups. Right, and make it fun. Right, well, make it fun is kind of up to you how you do it. But the last point here, what I would say is that, what about getting the teachers actually to share things with each other? Yeah, if you've got fun ideas, share them with your other teachers, okay? Say, this one really works. My students love this. This was really funny. Or somebody say, I thought this would be funny, but it wasn't, etc., etc., etc. So many things you can share with each other. So it's not just about the students sharing and getting together and working together. The teachers can work together and share things as well. And that really is a great thing to share. So you really get great ideas from other people. Right, so that's all we've got for now, I think. Where are we? Just that's the last of the points there, that these students, these teachers keep their students on their toes, right? So they're always ready for a new activity, always excited about a new activity. There are the 6 points again. So we've got as we went through them, they understand the huge importance of sharing. They can set up communicative activities quickly and clearly and not talking too much. They use cues to help students, but not too much. They try to be what they want their students to be. They set up activities to encourage sharing, and they keep their students on their toes. And those are all great ways of encouraging the students to work together, to enjoy each other's company to an extent, to share and to collaborate, and generally speaking, work together and learn the language more effectively, I feel. Right, there are some references. I think probably be getting something from the from Macmillan with these on. The one I can really recommend actually is the last one, fluentu.com. I think it's like an Italian language institute of some sort, and they have lots of really good activities. One of those ones, share it, not the share it, the what do you call them, post-it things that I said about putting under the desk. That idea came from these ones. They've got some really nice activities, so have a look at that. Right, and there we are. There's a little invitation there to join me on Facebook as Nicholas Beare. There, I do have another one in the name of Nick Beare, but the one for teachers, the other one's really for family. So the one for teachers is Nicholas Beare. So do join me, and we'll be adding some stuff to that website, to that Facebook page soon. And I think that's all we can do now. So thank you very much. And we've got a little bit of time for questions, I think. I think, John, have you been looking through? You grabbed some questions, have you?
We do indeed, yeah. Thank you so much, Nick.
Our pleasure. Gosh, really a pleasure.
And I'm just having a look down at a few questions coming in. The first one was actually, are you going to play that guitar? That was a question that came in from Vietnam.
I'm going to have to inflate it, actually. It's looking a bit sad, actually.
Okay, so maybe
very good question.
Maybe next time. Okay.
Right.
If anyone else has any other questions, please feel free to type in the chat box. What have I got here? I've got one from Nhung Lei in Vietnam. She was talking about the bit where you were talking about why students don't want to work together. And she wondered if you could elaborate a little bit more on why maybe it's not a good idea to be better than anyone else, that kind of feeling of being better than other people in the classroom, in terms of why they don't want to work together.
It's just my opinion, but I do feel there's a little bit too much. It comes particularly off the internet, actually. All these things about you can be the best, be the best, beat the others, and so on. Obviously, we want the students to do their best, and the way to get them to do that is to enjoy the activities and to really get something out of it and to feel they're making progress. But if they feel that the only thing that's important is being number one, that's where I think we've kind of gone slightly astray, where there's too much emphasis on being the best. When I say the best, it's not the student's best, like the best in the class. I want to be number one. I've got to be number one. If you can be, well, that's great. But you can still do a great job and learn a lot of language as number two or number three or number four or number five or whatever. So I think in certain cases, and I know parents, of course, forget about teachers, parents, of course, are very keen that their student should be number one, and they're perhaps very upset if their children aren't number one. I think we need to emphasize that at times a language is all about collaborating, and you can learn all the language you need and use it appropriately, even if you're not actually number one in the exams or whatever. I don't want to sort of discourage the students at all. Always they should be doing their best, but they can't always expect to be the best or be disappointed if they're not the best. This is one of the problems with that only one person can be the best in the exam or whatever. The other thing is that I think this kind of activity where we're encouraging or trying to encourage kind of collaborating and sharing and so on, they actually have other ways. We had 2 or 3 ways there of scoring points from the questionnaires, or scoring points from helping points and so on. These are other ways of being the best. I mean, this is another way of doing things very, very well. We don't want one student to be the best at absolutely everything. Some are good at one, some are not so good at the others. The main point is that they are enjoying the class and learning from the class and improving their English. And if in the exams they perhaps number 3, 4, 5, 6, or all the way down, perhaps quite a bit lower, it's not the end of the world. That's the thing. I kind of want to take a little bit of the emphasis of it. Do your best and enjoy it and make progress, basically. Right. Yeah. Any other questions?
Lovely, thank you. Yeah, thanks for that. Actually, I think in your course with the Share It course, they have running values going through the course as well, of like
An awful lot
respect.
on values, definitely. Yes,
And
I think this is a very good thing to have lots of different values that really, and most of them are about sharing and helping other people and so on. Yeah, with different kind of way of backgrounds and the ways they're done, but like a theme going all the way through the book at all levels, actually. And I think
great.
it's a great thing to be teaching, and the English class is the best way to be doing that. Rather like probably a lot of them have kind of like social studies or something like that. But this is just that aspect of social studies, but in English. Right. Any
Good.
others?
Come on then, last one then. From Cambodia. So Van
Oh,
from
yeah.
Cambodia. How could you make boys and girls work together? They just like to work with the same gender. That's a tough one,
That
isn't
is
it?
very true. Yes, so of course you've got to take that in, because I think it's very important. I'm always saying, it's great to have people mixing together, and we've got to mix them, so they're not always just working with their little tribe or whatever. But we really want to avoid, I think I should have mentioned this, forcing people together to work with people they don't like, as in girls do not, as boys rather, do not want to talk to girls. Yes, at a certain age, particularly when the boys are 11, 12. Boys are still, I think, like little babies sometimes, 11 and 12, whereas the girls are getting quite grown up and quite intelligent and mature and so on. It's quite difficult to join the two together. So yes, you have to use a little bit of be careful. Okay, I don't think it's possible really to say, right, you must go and work with so and so and so and so. You can do a little bit of kind of moving around and getting them to work with other people, but don't try and force them to go with another group of people that are simply not the right people for them. So how do you get the boys to work with the girls? I think basically for the time being you don't, unless sometimes they can have a different attitude in the class bit by bit, and it can work when it's easier. Actually, one way it can be easier in pair work, that's not great. A boy and a girl, if they're at the age where they're really self-conscious, say particularly 11, 12, very, very self-conscious for boys, I think, that's not going to work. But if you had a group with 2 girls and 2 boys, so it's a group of 4, that could be okay, actually. And that's one way of getting them to start working together. Because if you've got 2 girls, then they're okay with each other, and 2 boys, they're okay with each other, and they can just sort of talk to each other. Maybe there'll be a little bit a bit of a barrier, but it can work. Whereas one boy with one girl, when they're at the difficult time, the awkward time, I think best avoided, actually, unless they want to, of course. Sometimes they do.
Great.
Right.
All right then. Good. Well, thank you so much, Nick, for your time. And
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for all these lovely comments to everybody, and thanks for coming from so many different places. Somebody's just come up from Lebanon. That's extraordinary.
I know.
Don't know what time it is in Lebanon.
And we are
Nice
eagerly awaiting your presence in Asia face to face at some point where you can.
Oh, well, that'll be great.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I was actually about to come to Vietnam just before the whole thing about lockdown started. Yes. Yeah. That was a bit of a disappointment.
Oh.
Another time.
Good.
Okay.
All right, Nick. Well, thank you so much, and have a lovely day there. And
okay.
We look forward to see you again in Asia soon.
Everybody there, have a good evening. And to people in Lebanon, have a good afternoon, I think it is. The rest of you have a good evening. Right.
All right, Nick.
Okay, right. Thanks very much then.
Cheers,
okay,
Nick.
Right. Bye-bye.
Bye, Nick.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Nick.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Nick. Yeah. So thanks again to Nick for joining us. Thank you guys for joining us on what is a Wednesday evening. Help us help you. Give us some feedback on today's session. This will help us inform our future sessions. In this short survey, you can let us know what workshops, what topics, what issues, challenges that you have, and that will really help us and our authors design sessions in the future. You can scan that QR code, or our team will put the link to that survey in the chat box, so that you can see the survey link there in the chat box. come back to that a little bit later. If you're interested to find out more about the course that Nick is authoring, he was using some examples there for sharing in the classroom. This course is actually called Share It, and it's everything that you need. Everything is set up, as Nick was saying, easy to set up and manage activities. It comes with all these kind of activities all ready to go. It's fully flexible, so it can be taught online as well with digital student books, etc. if you're teaching online. So do check out that. Again, there'll be a link coming in your in the chat box there to that course. There it is. Again, there will be a certificate coming into your email shortly. If it's not there in a couple of days, do check your spam folder, but it should be with you within a day or two. So thanks again for attending, and well deserved that certificate. And our final webinar tomorrow, do join us. If you're also teaching teens or young adults, we have another one of our amazing authors, Rona, who will be talking about actually sort of the very sort of beginner levels of sort of teens and young adults, who are sometimes super difficult to teach, can be very sort of challenging. And she'll give you lots of practical tips for those sort of early or low proficiency level classes. And we also have Del, our regional teacher trainer, will be joining us for a Q&A in terms of challenges that you guys are having teaching teens and young adults. So do join us for that session tomorrow if that takes your fancy. Again, there's a link there to the survey if you missed that first time up. Thank you again. Have a lovely evening. Thanks for stopping by, and we look forward to seeing those of you who can join tomorrow. See you. Bye.